Hi, I am with the lovely Danielle from the ITC Wales. Hello.
Hi Andrew, thank you very much.
And Director of Sales, I believe.
I sure am.
And how long has that been for?
Oh, many, many years. I think I was only about 5 when I started, and that was coming up to 16 years ago now, so a long, long time.
Fantastic. And how has it been going?
Really well, thank you. So my background prior to the ICC Wales was the Celtic Manor Resort. So I spent many years there, and I've been involved in the ICC Wales straight from the planning. So what we would build, how much we would build, size, shape, scale, and now it's been open since September 2019 and going brilliantly.
And you've got another job as well, which is Martyn's Law, which is what we're here to talk about today, and the potential impacts that we have on the that has on the industry and venues and conference organisers.
Yeah, absolutely. So a super, super important piece of legislation that's coming for venues and organisers as well. So I'm really grateful of the opportunity to talk about it. Thank you.
So I know you've been spearheading a committee in regards to this. Why was Martyn's Law created?
So after the terror attack in Manchester Arena, so the worst terror attack to ever hit the UK, Figan Murray, who is Martyn Hett's mum, so Martyn was tragically killed in the Manchester Arena bombing. She made it her mission to turn this grief and channel her energies into positive change. And what she wanted to do is look at the security piece at events and in public accessible venues and locations. She didn't feel that it was adequate enough, and she was absolutely right. And obviously, if you've read into the inquiry and other things, which I know you have, you'll see that there were major failings, both from an organiser and a venue perspective. She didn't want to cast blame. What she wanted to do is take forward Martyn's Law to create this positive change and make sure that everybody can go home at night and that people can sleep at night. So she started her campaigning with government. I actually attended an event and watched her speak, and left there thinking, I need to do something about this. I cannot just walk away, take this story and not do anything with it. I also noticed that not much was being talked about through our industry, and as we're all organised and planners and it's in our nature, we want to be ahead of the game and we want to make sure that we're prepared for anything before it happens. So I came back to the office and said, look, let's see what we can do to support Figan and our industry in terms of what's coming.
And I think you've made a significant impact on that. I know the awareness in the industry about Martyn's Law is getting greater and greater. I still think there is a job of work to be done. I don't think there is enough people out there, and I don't really feel that people understand where their responsibilities lie. So in terms of ICC Wales, you've been spearheading this. So what have you guys been doing in terms of the venue?
So it's a colossal project. When I actually came back to the office and said we need to look at what we can do to take this forward, I was met with a lot of resistance. Why would we want to talk about something, such a tragic situation? Do we want to be involved in it? Do we always also want to put our head above the parapet and potentially make ourselves a threat? So every year we create a report for industry, and we do that because we know that there's a lot of education that's needed in our industry as well. So when we opened, our first report was all around mind, body and soul, food and drink, local culinary expertise, pasture to plate. So we created a fantastic report on that. Our second report, just prior to lockdown, was all about mental health and well-being in the events industry. So we were looking at a report. I came back to the office and said, I know, let's use this as an opportunity to create our report around the Protect Duty and Martyn's Law, educate the industry, help our clients along this really kind of uncharted territory, and also give our bit back. So our first project, we sat down and we wrote a report. We engaged with lots of third parties, lots of security professionals. So we reached out to some counter-terrorism officers and trainers who were absolutely instrumental in putting critical pieces of information together into that report. We also approached companies around security equipment at events as well, because we are just our venue here, but our clients book all kinds of venues, they book all kinds of events. So we wanted to give that really well-rounded approach and factual, correct information. And it's not our area of expertise, counter-terrorism, but events are. So we wrote the report, and since then we've presented at lots of different exhibitions and trade shows, the Meeting Show, IMEX, IBTM, any opportunity we can to talk about it, we always do. And we do that just because you said there's a huge project ahead and there's a huge amount of people that still don't know about it. When we were putting the report together, we wanted to survey people and find out really what that level of knowledge was. Our first survey went out to the entire database of the Celtic Manor and the ICC Wales, and less than 100 people responded. And as you can imagine, those databases are colossal. And that really, before anybody even answered a question, put a huge tick into my mind that this is something that's really important, because we needed to look at why they didn't reply. Did they think it didn't have any bearing on them? It wasn't important to them? It wasn't a consideration they needed? Or was it because they knew nothing about it and didn't want to look silly?
Probably.
Yeah, absolutely. And so before we even asked, just those stats coming back was something that set alarm bells for me. So within that survey, more than half of the people said that they didn't even know what the Protect Duty or Martyn's Law was. But reassuringly, 75% of people said they do want to know more. They want to know whose responsibility it is, where the cost comes from, who pays for it, whose responsibility it is for each element, and how can they find more information. Worryingly, around 45% of people actually said that they feel comfortable and confident with the security measures that are currently in place at their venues, which, given that there's no guidelines at the moment to even consult with counter-terrorism, is quite shocking. So within that survey, that really helped set our roadmap in terms of our activity to bring awareness to as many people as we can.
In terms of the research that you guys have done and the sort of the surveys that you've conducted, what have you guys changed at the venue that supports Martyn's Law and gets you ready for the legislative changes that are coming?
So we're very lucky that we're a brand new venue. So when we were built, a lot of the security infrastructure that we take for granted that we have here, some venues are not so lucky to have. So when we were looking at the report and putting together the guidelines, the first thing that we advised everybody to do is to complete a counter-terrorism risk assessment, a vulnerability assessment. So nobody likes admitting that they're vulnerable, but actually it's really important we do. So we had to look at our counter-terrorism risk assessment. Was it robust enough? Did it cover everything we needed it to? Did it need to be rewritten? Also look at our vulnerability assessment. So we've got this amazing, brand new, wonderful building, but we still have vulnerabilities as well. And as you know, terrorists will look for those vulnerabilities and how to get in and how to create the most impact that they can. Staff training is a key one, and you'll read from the inquiry. So many of the staff that were involved in the Manchester Arena that evening had very limited training, had very restrictive training, and also stewarding. So stewards who were paid minimal wage, put on a jacket, and then all of a sudden they're responsible for 8, 10, 12,000 people. So we looked at all of those key areas, started that training for our team, not just our senior team as well, our team actually on the ground here, the whole education around that, as well as looking at what improvements we could make. The final piece was around our clients, because we were getting ourselves ready, but actually a lot of our clients weren't even aware of this. So we started that education piece with our clients, looking at their events, helping them with their event safety and security plans, so that we're in a partnership together and both responsible and taking ownership.
Are you finding that with event organisers, they are doing their own risk assessments on the event itself, working with you guys and providing information in terms of the nature of the event and the attendees and the delegates and the high-profile people that are coming?
They do. So people are great at risk assessments. You know, it's something that's been in place for a really long time. But this whole counter-terrorism is a completely new and unknown element. And we don't want to bring doom and gloom, but ultimately we just want to look after people and take care of them. So what we're doing is looking at that risk assessment and then asking some of those more probing questions around the level of people attending, the numbers, the topics of discussion, any disruption that they've had before. And then we're helping advise them on sections that should be in that risk assessment and guiding them along that journey so that they're aware of it. And then it's knowledge that they can take to other venues. As we know, a lot of events rotate around the UK as well.
Are you finding that conference organisers are looking at the counter-terrorism measures that a venue has in place as part of their selection criteria?
They're not, and Andrew, you're part of our events industry working group, and it's really surprising that it's not forming part of many RFPs at the moment, and it absolutely does need to be. So like people are now asking questions around DE&I, sustainability and so on, they need to be asking those questions. Very quickly it's going to creep up on us. It was announced in the Queen's speech last year and it's just being finalised now through local government and UK government as well. So I think if we can get in that habit of asking those questions of venues at the beginning, it stops any shocks or any surprises later, and it just shows a venue that you're aware, that you're organised and that you've got your delegates and staff's best interests at heart.
Absolutely, and I think from a sort of a conference organiser's perspective, it's probably not come across everyone's minds in terms of asking for these risk assessments and reviewing it and working with the venue. I suspect a lot of people just assume that you guys are doing it. And I suppose what I found interesting in terms of sort of counter-terrorism and security is the help and support is already there.
It is.
It's just not legislation.
It is.
And this is forcing venues and conference organisers to take it seriously, and it will be part of statute moving forward. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it is best practice, but it's actually not mandatory. And I think that's that grey area at the moment, that it can't just be a recommended or a nice to have. It has to form part of an official structure moving forward. And I think the problem that we've got is that this tragic incident happened at a concert. So naturally, a lot of organisers will think, it doesn't apply to a conference, it doesn't apply to a business meeting. But we know from other terror attacks, so the one that happened on London Bridge, we know that actually it could happen at any type of event, and not just large scale either. It could be a small event if you've got a high profile speaker. So I think it's putting it on people's radars, and I think it's encouraging people to do something about it and make it more formal, because we all want to be able to sleep at night, we all want to be able to go home at night, and also we want to be able to say that we've done everything within our power if anything does happen to keep everybody safe, which is the ultimate goal.
Absolutely, and this applies to public accessible locations, PALs as they refer to, and there are two tiers to that. One for over 100 and another for over 800, which clearly this venue satisfies both of those, I suppose.
Yeah.
But in terms of the 800, what are sort of the key things that a venue would need to be sort of considering?
So we've actually put together a flowchart, which this is an inside scoop. So Andrew is going to have this shared with him on Monday and the rest of the group. We will also be sharing it out to the rest of industry, just to try and help people along as much as we can. So we've created a flowchart, and we've also created a document of different scenarios as a helpful kind of quick reference guide to organisers. So this document here gives you that flowchart, which says up to 100 delegates. Communicate your plans to the venue as you normally would. Be aware of any risk factors associated with your event, and then what the venue responsibilities are and what yours are as an organiser. But pretty much up to 100 attendees, you operate as you have been doing, but you include that element of a counter-terrorism plan and an event safety plan in your risk assessment. Then you jump your 1 to 800, which is where you have your full risk assessment. You review your security, so your bag checks, man all of your areas, keycard entry to certain locations, and there's a process then that sits behind that. Then you have your 800 plus. So we're a huge venue here. We're up to 5,000 people. We could have one event in for 5,000, in which case they sit in this 800 category, but we could have 4 or 5 different events of 100 people, and that's where the organisers would have partnerships with us on doing that, but we would also have a larger counter-terrorism plan for having that number of people here. And I think it's quite straightforward what you need to do, but it is just logging everything and making a point that you've thought about it, covering off, making sure you've ticked all of your boxes and that you've done everything you need to do to make everybody safe. And I think it seems like quite a scary topic, but it is just taking care of people, and I think it doesn't need to be a lot of money, so it's not a scary thought in terms of cost, because any action you take needs to be relative to the level of risk involved, so you've got to mitigate that risk.
Proportionate risk.
Absolutely. So you don't need another 100 security professionals for an event of 50 people. It's absolutely not that, and it shouldn't be a money-making exercise either. From consultants that will approach you and say, let me create this amazing counter-terrorism plan for you. Actually, as you said earlier, there's a lot of complementary resources also available online. So on the Protect Duty website, you can go and you can download lots of free training, lots of free counter-terrorism training for staff as well, and all of that is readily available.
And I believe they're producing the actual risk assessment documents themselves as well that you can
sure
download
are.
and utilise.
Which
will be really useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's great. The statute was planned for, I think it was June, wasn't it, 2022? Obviously not in place. Are we still lobbying government? And when do we expect the statute to become...
Ooh, I need a crystal ball with this one, but yes, we are lobbying government. As we saw as an events industry during COVID, we can't sit back and just let government make decisions without input from key industry professionals. I think COVID was great from the perspective that it showed our industry as a viable industry, but government do need all of the support that they can in terms of the education and the delivery. What we don't want is them to issue a set of rules around this that won't work for us as organisers or venues and won't make events viable. So what we're doing as a venue, we've set up the Protect Duty Event Industry Group, number 1 here, and so Andrew forms part of that, and what we've done is bring on board clients, associations, agents, corporates, events industry professionals to all feed into this group, and then that is fed back via the all-party parliamentary group, the APPG, and BEIS and DCMS, so that that's fed into government in terms of what do we want this to look like, how will it look and feel, and how will it deliver in a real world. We were hoping that this would have been put to bed and all live already last year. Unfortunately, there's been lots of other challenges,
with government.
And it's been a busy time. So I can tell you that Fegan has been in touch with Rishi, with the Prime Minister, and also the Home Secretary. So I would urge you to follow Fegan Murray on Twitter, and you can see her updates on this. And so she has campaigned tirelessly. So it is really starting to gather momentum. So I think the fact that we've had some indicative legislation pieces already is promising, and I would foresee within the next couple of months that will be finalised.
The people watching this are probably thinking to themselves, if they have not seen Martyn's Law, look up the government website, type it in, have a little read of it. It is very interesting and everything else, but you're going to be left, I suppose, with thinking and feeling, well, if something does go wrong, who is to blame? Is it the venue? Is it the paying customer? Is it the conference organiser? Is it all of them? And I don't know whether you would know what the answer to that is, but it's certainly an interesting one. From reading all the information, I think that the Martyn's Law is heavy on the venue, but certainly suppliers, security staff, technology, professional conference organisers. They have an element to contribute to the safety of the attendees of the events.
Absolutely.
I think a question which you may or may not know, in terms of our European partners, have they got anything similar in place?
They don't. So Vegan has actually been asked to go and speak at a couple of different international locations because, as we know, unfortunately, terrorism doesn't only affect the UK. It's all over the world. And so she has been asked to go and speak at those locations. We also see the importance of it being pushed out to an international level. We actually entered into a Best Marketing Award for our campaign around the Protect Duty with ICA. That was in Vienna in November, end of October. And we actually won. And yes, I was thrilled to win the award, but for me, what was really important was that we were in a packed auditorium with 1,000 people from all over the world. Don't get me wrong, I was scared stiff going onto the stage, but having 1,000 pairs of ears listening, taking this back to their countries, and afterwards so many people coming and saying, I'm from Vienna, or I'm from Krakow, I'm from America, I'm from Thailand. We have these problems. This is so important. Thank you. It was such a moving presentation, and it is so key. So for me, that legacy is just amazing. And it's something that will gather pace throughout other governments. I'm absolutely sure of it as well.
And I think also, spearheading this, the UK becomes a great destination for people that want to run safe events for their attendees.
Absolutely. I think I'm a big advocate for the UK and Wales in particular, and I think
really?
Anything that we can do to raise our profile. Ultimately, we want events to come to the UK and stay in the UK. We've got a fantastic offering around the UK of amazing venues, and anything that we can do to solidify our position in terms of choice, competitiveness, friendliness, welcome, but also safety and security as well, I think will really set us apart.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you, and I would urge you all to look up Martyn's Law and read up on it. It's going to be statute, it's going to be important, and I think as we move forward, more and more event organisers will be contacting said venues to check out their counter-terrorism risk assessments and methodologies and vulnerabilities and everything else. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.